For the first time in a long while, a smartphone company finally decided to care about the $100 price segment and released a phone that, at first glance, looks like a normal budget phone. But inside, it's got a strong processor that gives you a really decent performance experience, something you wouldn't call a weak budget experience at all. This processor actually exists in phones that are way more expensive. This phone truly deserves to be called value for money. Welcome to Samsung's new budget smartphones, the Galaxy A07 and the Galaxy A17. The A07 is the successor to the old A06, and honestly, it delivers a much better performance experience. And at the same time, its price didn't increase. It's still the same as the older model. As for the A17, it's the successor to the A16, which used to hold the title of King of the Budget segment. But did the competition change? Are there now stronger phones in the budget category in 2025? We'll find out everything in today's video. As always, drop your like and let's start the review. Both of these phones come with the same processor, the MediaTek G99, built on 6nm technology with Android 15, and a promise of 6 years of Android updates. That's, as usual, the longest update period you'll ever find. No one in the budget class, like the A07's $100 category, promises 6 years of updates. That's a guarantee that this phone will stay usable for 6 years ahead. And that's something very important for users buying in this range. Anyway, yes, both phones have the same processor, but for me, the A07 delivers an exceptional experience for its price. There's literally no phone in its price range that gives you this chip. And the performance you get here, sure, it's not the smoothest or fastest out there, so don't expect it to be a rocket, but compared to other budget phones I've tested, the A07 really delivers respectable performance. You can rely on it for daily use without major issues. Now, the A17 comes with the same G99 processor that we saw in the A16 and A15. That's 3 generations with the same chip. This could annoy a lot of people, and honestly, it annoys me too. But apparently Samsung did the math, like what's the newer chip, the G100 or G200? They probably thought, it's not a huge difference from the G99, maybe 10% in graphics performance, so let's just save some cost and use the G99 stock in multiple models, then we'll upgrade later. And I think since Samsung put the G99 in the cheaper A07, starting next year, they'll either cancel 4G in the A17 series or make the 4G version come with a slightly newer and stronger processor. That's my prediction for the lineup. Anyway, the A17 still offers decent performance, smooth enough, not laggy or annoying, but not super slick either. It's roughly on par with the Hot 16 Pro. The Infinix feels smoother when scrolling inside apps, while the Samsung wins in app launch speed. Honestly, Samsung's interface is really good at launching apps quickly. But here's something you need to understand. Samsung's One UI with 4GB of RAM tends to be laggy or a bit slow. I tested the A07 128GB plus 4GB RAM and also the A17 128GB plus 6GB RAM, both with the same processor. The A17 feels smoother, the interface moves more freely, while on the A07 you feel like the system is a bit tight or restricted. That's why I always tell you, if you want to buy a Samsung phone and rely on it as your main device, not a secondary one, please go for 6GB of RAM, not 4. PUBG runs on both phones at extreme or 60 frames per second, and the experience is fine, not the smoothest ever, but good enough. When I tested the Hot 16 Pro side by side, it was a bit smoother in gaming. That 10% GPU difference actually shows in gameplay. But one thing I really liked about both phones is the temperature control. They don't heat up at all. I tested them with other budget phones, and these two are clearly the coolest. Excellent thermal management. Now, let's move on to an important point, the display. There's a huge difference between these two phones. Both have a 6.7 inches 90Hz screen, but the A17 has a Super AMOLED Full HD Plus panel, while the A07 has an LCD HD Plus screen. Both are flat and come with an old-style notch and thick bezels, especially the bottom one. Samsung clearly didn't work on that at all. But the difference in actual display quality is massive. The A17 screen is miles better in colors, contrast, details, blacks, whites, literally everything. The A07 screen looks so washed out, like the colors went through a washing machine and came out faded. And I'm saying this because I know some people will go, oh wow, the G99 and $100 phone, I'm getting the A07. Then they'll be surprised that the display isn't that good. Compared to other budget phones, sure, none of them are perfect, but still, you should know this. If you can pay the extra $40 or so and get the A17, do it. You'll get a much better display. Also, the A17 has better screen protection, Gorilla Victus Plus, the same protection used in higher-end Samsung phones, which is great. It's the best protection you'll find in this price category. But don't get me wrong, I'm still not happy with the display design of the A17. For the past 2 years, I've been asking Samsung to change this old-style notch. It's outdated and it shouldn't be used even in cheap phones anymore. But Samsung's usual response seems to be, hey boss, check out the other budget phones from big brands. Compare their screens to ours are way better. And honestly, they have a point. When you put the A17 next to budget phones from Oppo, Realme, or Vivo, the Samsung screen does look much better since it's Super AMOLED, while the others are usually IPS LCD or lower quality panels. However, there's an old player making a comeback, Infinix, and they've released the Hot 16 Pro with a gorgeous screen and the Hot 16 Pro Plus version with a curved display. Forget the Plus version, let's stick to the Hot 16 Pro. It has a really good screen. Now, to be fair, in terms of color quality and the ability to adjust vividness, Samsung is still ahead. You can boost the saturation as much as you want, but that also makes colors look less realistic. That's not a big problem though. The Infinix colors are fine. My main issue is the shape of the display, and the Infinix one definitely looks better. When you hold the A17 next to the Hot 16 Pro, you'll find yourself more attracted to the Infinix display design because it simply looks nicer. As for the brightness, the A17 is much brighter than the A07, which is quite dim, but Samsung didn't improve brightness on the A17 compared to the A16. It's still around 800 nits. So yeah, it tries to push maximum brightness outdoors under sunlight so you can see the screen fine. Still, there's no always-on display. Samsung removed it from the interface on the A17, though you can re-enable it using third-party apps.
The design of these two phones is what you'd call a budget design. Samsung says they've changed the material. It's now made of compressed polymer that feels like glass, not plastic. All right, fair enough. You can actually feel a bit of a change compared to the previous generation. Of course, the frame is fully plastic, the phone's got lighter and thinner. The A07 weighs 182 grams with a thickness of 7.6 millimeters, and the A17 weighs 190 grams with a thickness of 7.5 millimeters. The darker colors of these phones are honestly not nice at all. I don't recommend getting a dark one. You'll ask, then why did you buy it? And I'll tell you, honestly, it's just what I found available in the market. The fingerprint sensor here is on the power button. Its performance is acceptable, not the fastest, but not terrible either. Both phones have an extra microphone for noise cancellation, which is nice. Even the A07, a phone under $100, still has it. But the NFC feature is only available on the A17, not on the A07. Both have mono speakers, but the A07 sound is really quiet. The A17 sound is also mono, but louder and clear enough. Still, I really wish Samsung had added stereo speakers to this phone. It would have made a big difference. The proximity sensor for calls in the A17 is software-based, just like the A16. It's acceptable. It'll turn off the screen when you put it to your ear normally. But in the A07, there's a real hardware sensor, and it works perfectly with no issues. However, the gyroscope is real only in the A17. It's removed from the A07. As for call recording, both phones can record calls normally without telling the other party. I honestly don't know how. The 3.5mm headphone jack is available on the A07, but not on the A17. Network and Wi-Fi quality are, as usual, average, not the strongest at all. There's no improvement here compared to the older A16 that I have. They still filter out weak signals, and if you're in an area with weak coverage, the phone will take a bit to catch the signal. You'll probably find yourself moving closer to the window. Battery-wise, both still have 5,000 milliamp hours, no change. Performance is acceptable, not bad. Both can reach about 8 hours of screen on time, maybe even 9, meaning they'll easily last you through the whole day. They both support 25-watt charging as usual, but there's no charger in the box. What I found is that the A17 charges faster, about an hour and 15 minutes, while the A07 takes about 15 minutes longer, around an hour and a half. That's still fine. But what's not fine and honestly not acceptable is buying a budget phone and then having to run around looking for a charger. Come on, Samsung, please fix this. Anyway, let's wrap up with the cameras. Both have a 50-megapixel main rear camera, but the A17 now adds optical image stabilization, making it the cheapest phone to offer OIS. Samsung is trying to bring features from its higher-end phones down to the budget category, and that's really nice. The A17 also has an extra 5-megapixel ultra-wide lens, something you rarely find in the budget class. Of course, the A07 doesn't have an ultra-wide lens. The selfie camera is 13 megapixels on the A17 and 8 megapixels on the A07. Both shoot regular portrait photos at 1x, no 2x. They both shoot videos in 1080p. So let's put the specs aside and test the cameras. I'm not just comparing between the two, both take acceptable photos for their price. Of course, the A17 often gives better results than the A07, but honestly, the A07 isn't bad for its price. In general, Samsung phones are reliable for photography. They're consistently decent. I personally liked the A17 more, but sometimes the A07's photos look pretty close to the A17's. Of course, the A17 has better color accuracy and more detail. As for selfies, totally different story. The A17 is clearly much better than the A07. They use completely different lenses. Beyond image processing, the A17's selfie quality is solid, while the A07's is more on the basic budget side. And truthfully, there's been no real improvement in the A17's photo quality compared to the A16, same camera. What changed is the addition of optical stabilization in the A17, giving you steadier shots. But in terms of processing, they're basically twins. The real difference shows in video recording. Video quality in the A17 is still 1080p like the A16, same resolution, same processing, but the new optical stabilization makes a huge difference. This is the first time we've seen OIS in a budget phone, and it truly stabilizes videos. Now all we need is 4K video to reach the budget category, and we'll be set. So will there be a big difference in video quality between the A17 and the A07? Yes, mainly in stability, the A17 is noticeably steadier. Now for the prices. The A07, 64 gigabytes with 4 gigabytes of RAM for $99, 128 gigabytes with 4 gigabytes of RAM for $110, 128 gigabytes with 6 gigabytes of RAM for $120. The A17, 128 gigabytes with 4 gigabytes of RAM for $170, 128 gigabytes with 6 gigabytes of RAM for $185, 256 gigabytes with 8 gigabytes of RAM for $215.
All prices mentioned are approximate estimates, meant to give you a general idea. Please check local prices in your country for accuracy.
Both phones support 2 SIM cards. In the A07, there's a dedicated microSD slot. In the A17, the memory card goes into the same slot as the second SIM, and it supports up to 2 terabytes. Let's talk logically and honestly now. Here's my final opinion. The A07 is a phone that's going to shake up the $100 market. It gives you the best performance experience with no real competitor from any other brand so far at this price. It covers all the basics smoothly, and that's genuinely impressive for its category. As for the A17, it still stands out. 6 years of Android updates, something you won't find in any other phone. The added optical image stabilization in the main camera, also unique. Gorilla Victus Plus protection on the screen, again, no other phone at this price has it. And it doesn't fall short in performance with the G99 processor or display quality, which is still quite good. But I do have some reservations about the A17's display design. It's outdated. And now there's competition. Phones like the Infinix Hot 16 Pro have better-looking screens, even if their G120 processor isn't much stronger than the G99. Still, the display on the Hot 16 Pro looks better. And I also wish the A17 had stereo speakers. That would have made it much more appealing in its price range. So I've got 2 opposite messages for Samsung right now. Bravo on the A07. It's a great step that's going to push competitors to step up their game in the $100 category. But the A17, it's good, still solid for a budget phone, but please, Samsung, for the A18, let's not keep recycling the same phone with 1 or 2 small additions and calling it new. I get that Samsung focuses on reliability, availability, spare parts, long updates, and user trust. Like, why switch to an unknown brand that might not last? And yeah, brands like Infinix still have weaker consumer trust, but I really think that's going to change soon. Thank you so much if you've watched till the end of the video. I know I've talked a lot, but make sure you hit that like button, drop a comment right now, and tell me your thoughts about the A07 and A17. If you've used any Samsung budget phone before, tell me your opinion about the sensor, network, fingerprint, and software reliability, all those things people usually worry about. And of course, make sure you subscribe if this is your first time on the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss our next phone reviews and comparisons as soon as they drop.